It's Brainwashed with Dr. Tom and Guitar Picks with Paul Hunneman. Led Zeppelin, Black Mountain Side.
You know, well, if you want to talk about influences, I mean, you can't get away from it. I really just think that anything in hard rock these days has been influenced one way or another. You know, I mean, you know, some younger people will probably argue otherwise, but you know, things didn't start with Nirvana. I mean, in fact, really, you know, Dave Grohl is so much into Zeppelin. He's got a John Bonham tattoo on his arm. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, that kind of shows, you know, shows you where his head is at. Yeah, I mean, you know, they cover so much ground, you know. I mean, I would say within one record, they covered more musical territory in one record than most groups these days can do in their entire career. Mm-hmm. You know, but that's the way it was back then. You know, record companies allowed artists to experiment and basically just do whatever they wanted to. They didn't understand it. You know, the record companies like Atlantic were run by people who were really into music, like the Erdogan brothers. Mm-hmm. And like I said, they didn't understand what the artists were about, but people were buying it. They were like, all right, fine, go ahead, make a double album, concept album or whatever. You know, people are going to buy it. And really, I was watching something on TV the other night about, I guess, one of those VH1 behind the music things or whatever. Where are they now? Yeah. They talked about Jethro Tull. 1972, Jethro Tull's "Thick as a Brick," a two-sided concept record, was number one. Uh-huh. I mean, that's sort of thing's inconceivable these days. Yeah. You know, you know, it's selling in the millions. You know, and it's one long song that lasts like 50 minutes. I have to say this: disco and punk messed everything up. I mean, they really did. I mean, rock music was not in need of dumbing down, and that's what they did. Yeah. They just made everybody think that, hey, you know, we don't want to think about music. We don't want to use our heads. We just want to, you know, be stupid for the sake of it. Disco and punk sucked the brains and soul out of music. Mm-hmm. Period.
You're here to pick guitars and pick a fight too, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Can you give us some Led Zeppelin?
Sure.
Actually, this is great. Guitar picks. He dropped his pick inside the guitar, so you hear. This is play-by-play of getting the pick out of the guitar.
I don't think it's going to happen.
This is a first for guitar picks. There's one here. Do you want that one?
Well, it's a bit heavy, but. That's an old British Isle tuning called Dadgad, D-A-D-G-A-D. Mm-hmm. It's really great. You know, you can use it for an awful lot of things. You can use it in traditional folk stuff, but you can also write rock stuff with it as well.
Mm-hmm. It's Brainwashed with Dr. Tom and Guitar Picks with Paul Hunneman. Genesis, Entangled.
This is back in 72 when Peter Gabriel was in the group. Mm-hmm. Most people, when they hear the name Genesis, they think, oh, you know, Phil Collins, Invisible Touch, yada, yada, or whatever. Mm-hmm. But no, I mean, they started out being a pretty weird group, pretty avant-garde. Mm-hmm. And they were definitely a huge influence on a lot of people, including myself. One of the things that I got from the Genesis sound was the thickly layered acoustic 12 strings. Mm-hmm. The only other band I ever heard use that was probably Crosby, Stills and Nash. Mm-hmm. But Genesis really took it further. You know, they'd all be in different tunings using capos, And it's pretty magical sounding stuff. Supper's Ready and Entangled are both like that.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I could play an example.
Yeah, if you would.
Let's see. Okay. Well, this is not a Genesis song, but it was definitely very much influenced by things like Supper's Ready and Entangled. This is a song I wrote called The Stream of Goodness.
Okay.
It's part of a trilogy. So that's it. Yeah, that's in a tuning that I made up. You drop the two E's down to a D and put a capo on the 7th fret. So that's my method of madness.
So the
on that one.
Drop D capo 7th fret tuning.
Right. Yeah. Both E's down to a D.
The double drop.
Double drop.
D E 7th fret capo Hunneman tuning.
Right. Yeah.
It's Brainwash with Dr. Tom and Guitar Picks with Paul Hunneman. Yes, Awaken.
One of the things about Yes is not a whole lot of people, even in the 70s, were influenced by Yes because it's a difficult influence to take in. I mean, you cannot be a slouch on your instrument at all. I mean, you got to know something about what you're doing in order to, like, say, as a guitar player, for instance, I mean, it took me a while to be able to assimilate anything that Steve Howe did.
It's the tuning show with Paul Hunneman.
We've only discussed about a handful of songs. We've already been through about as many tunings.
It's Brainwash with Dr. Tom and Guitar Picks with Paul Hunneman. The Moody Blues, Tuesday afternoon.
That's very tra-la-la kind of music. In England, they call it twee.
Twee.
That's what they call it, twee. But, you know, it's quite lovely. Yeah, it's just a really nice song.